It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Delightful.
Should I say, I'm doing great?
You would, but nobody's going to get the joke now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We were picking on Liz before the thing, and yeah. Robot voices.
You know what? I was going to offer this, but I'm like, this is going to be what Mike has to do, so I don't know if I want to offer it. But I thought it would be a great little kind of do a stinger, like a post-credits bit, where you can just put something like this whole discussion of Liz's headphones and all that would be right there at the end of the credits.
All right.
But I don't want to make you work harder than you are.
No, that actually, just a little bit like that shouldn't be any trouble at all.
Yeah, but would you feel like doing that every week? Or would you just do it every once in a while and try to make everybody listen?
Probably not do it every
See if there's
week. But I'm willing to do it when there's something really funny going on.
Yeah.
Just do it every once in a while. Make sure everybody's listening through the entire episode so they can see if there's one this week or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
there you
think
go.
I've done it before, but not very often. So, but yeah.
Some of our best stuff is said before and after the show.
Some of our worst stuff is also said before and after the show, but anyway.
And unfortunately, that is true, too.
Sometimes at the same time, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope everybody out there is doing all right. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, speaking of glimpses behind the curtain, pay no attention to the, no. I had sort of an eventful week, kind of, in a podcasting sense. So a couple weeks ago, I got, well, actually that started, well, that was like a month ago, that whole process started. I got invited to be a guest on a podcast by a group calling themselves Pod Clubhouse. I definitely think everybody should check them out. They're pretty cool. But one of the bits they have like several. I hesitate to call what they do a network because it's actually mostly the same people doing basically doing different flavors of podcasts. So they do some stuff that's like TV related, like companion podcast type things. But one of the things they do, and various other stuff, but one of the things they do is a segment they call Interview with a Podcast. And they invite podcasters onto their show and just talk podcasting type stuff with them and whatever it is that their shows are usually about. And so they reached out to me a little ways back. And so a couple weeks ago, I got on and we recorded for a while and had a really nice conversation. It was really cool. But then the reason I bring that up now is because that episode dropped last Tuesday. And so that comes through and I kind of retweeted it out and plugged it a little bit. And then I guess you could say coincidentally, Thursday morning, like late Thursday morning, like around lunchtime, I guess, we got tagged by Pop Goes the Culture, the podcast, because one of they do kind of a handful of different things too with their show. They release 2 or 3 times a week normally. One of the ones they do is that they ping some podcasters, usually people in the network, so we had a leg up on that, to hop on their Discord channel on Thursday night to basically Joey goes through and pulls out a bunch of like news bits and media type stuff and like TV and movies and all that stuff. And then they have some stupid news type stuff they do. But they bring in just some other people to kind of discuss it and have a good time with it on Thursday night to drop on Friday morning. So I didn't listen to it. I don't know how edited it is. But so I jumped on and did that with them last Thursday. So that dropped Friday morning. So anybody, if for some weird reason anybody wants to hear more of my lovely voice, there's a couple of options for you there. There's the Pod Clubhouse option and their interview with the podcast segment. And then the Pop Goes the Culture podcast, their news show from last Friday. And I will drop links in the show notes for both, just in case anybody wants to hear me blather on about something. I can't imagine anybody wanting to do that.
Woo-hoo.
Sign me up. Hey.
But yeah, so that's what I was busy doing this week.
That is cool.
Very nice.
It was
That
a
is
lot
pretty
of
cool.
fun too. It is. I will say this. It is very, as much as I gripe, because I know I gripe a lot about it, much to the chagrin of my wonderful co-hosts. As much as I gripe about interviewing people, being interviewed is way weirder. Way weirder. I don't know if I could. That's just. I mean, I would do it again if I had to, but man, it's strange. It is way different.
Are you on a defensive stance?
I mean, not any more than my usual neurosis makes me be, but.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I understand that. You know, when Les and I were on the Rancor pit last year, it felt weird because, you know, we were being asked about, you know, origins of the fellowship and the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it was kind of weird to kind of do that. So I understand.
It's a different perspective for sure.
And you know, SourcePoint's been doing a lot of like Facebook Live interviews with artists and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Madeline actually happened to be on the other night.
Cool.
And listening to him interview her, it was kind of like, you know, we were always like, oh man, we suck at this and blah, 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 blah. But we actually don't do that bad.
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think you're right.
I think she actually felt more comfortable talking to us because it was just kind of like a general chit chat. When I was watching this one with SourcePoint, she almost felt uncomfortable or looked uncomfortable, you know. And so I started throwing things out like, hey, ask her about her newsletter, you know, or hey, what about this?
Wow.
That's awesome. Good job.
So, but she was probably like, who is Liz Newman? Why do you know so much about me? But yeah, I mean, it was just, like I said, part of it was really uncomfortable, but she just felt like she didn't want to be, plus it's video, you know, so she was just kind of like, I don't want to be here right now.
And which might be a little different. I mean, people are, I mean, as self-conscious as I even get about talking on air, as it were, I mean, in the sense that we do it, I think I would be even more, I would feel even weirder if there was video involved.
Yeah.
I seem to remember that. I think, honestly, starting out that way with the webcast that we did before probably prepared me better for podcasting than anything else, because just me talking is way less weird than me being on camera.
I can see that. Yeah.
So yeah, agreed.
Now you know how Les and I felt the early days when we just know just us and 2 or 3 other people kind of watching us and
in the chat room.
talking in the chat room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else.
So.
You learn how to babble in at least a semi-reasonably intelligent manner.
Yeah, I'm missing that last part.
Well, we're all still working on that last part. we're all still working on it. It's all dodgy most of the time for all of us. Don't worry.
Well, that's awesome.
That
Great
is.
job. Great job.
That is.
All right, next.
Oh man. Well, actually, I finally got around to watching the movie that Les recommended to us. That I heard that. That was really interesting. I didn't realize that.
Talking about I Know That Voice?
Oh, I know that voice. There it is. I know that voice.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, his name just left me. The guy who voices Bender.
John DiMaggio.
Yes. He was the one who was responsible for putting that all together,
Yeah, he's effectively the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting. Like I said, some of them was like, wow, I didn't know she was still around. Or, But I liked that one a lot. So I would definitely second that one if you guys haven't seen it. It is on Amazon Prime. But yeah, I haven't really watched a lot of TV here lately. With the virus going around, a lot of my shows that I watched were put on hold. And now, like, CW has decided, instead of going back to the fall schedule, it may be 2021 before these shows come back, all but Supernatural. So it was kind of like, oh, some of them left on major cliffhanger. I'm not complaining. I completely understand what's going on right now. I don't have my head in the sand, but 2021, when they put it that way, it's like, wow.
It sounds like a long time, doesn't
it? Yeah, But with Supernatural, I think it will come back in the fall. But according to Robert, who writes the show, he's already changed the ending during this time. So,
In a way, I don't blame him, because I mean, with everybody who is involved in making the show sitting around not doing anything right now, you just never know what could get leaked out. And I mean, not to blame anybody for anything, but you never know what could get leaked out.
True.
So I kind of don't blame him for making some changes to keep things fresh, if nothing else.
Well, he had said he found a better way, because originally what he had told us was the series would end, of course we knew, but at the end he would have a movie that would kind of explain everything. So I don't know if that's still in the works or not. To me, that means we're in trouble. If you have to have a movie, or you have to have a movie to explain what you've just provided a whole season's worth of TV for. 22 hours.
Not even just a whole season, but 15 seasons. Come on.
15 years.
If you haven't explained it by now.
Yeah.
See, it's funny.
So
I had this conversation just the other day, too. But go ahead. Not about Supernatural, but about something else.
So I'm hoping that he restructured so they don't have to do that. To me, that's, like El Camino from Breaking Bad. They shouldn't have done it. They should have just left it alone. It ended good. It had questions, but I think if you leave an audience questioning and wanting more, you did a good job. If you wrapped it all up and there's still parts that they're answering for themselves, you've done a good job, So.
Unpopular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the exact same way about the Netflix season of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
They just shouldn't have done it. The end of whoever put that, the end of the season before that, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5. It was a beautiful end point for that series. It was the perfect point to walk away. If you and there's a reference in there, and if you don't get it, go watch Clone Wars. But there was a perfect chance to end that and just let it go, and they didn't, and it was terrible.
Yeah. I do think sometimes TV shows go past what they're supposed to.
It's that shark thing.
Mm-hmm. How I Got Away with Murder just ended. Now, the way they ended that episode was, I mean, as a fan of the show, it was just beautiful. But part of that is Viola Davis. I have not seen something that woman could not play and play beautifully, you know. But it was kind of one of those that, as much as I enjoyed the season finale, I don't think they should have done this season. They should have ended last season, or actually 2 seasons ago, and it would have answered everything. Loose ends tied up, it would have been perfect, but they pushed through 2 more seasons to where it was just like, oh, you know.
God, that sounds familiar, doesn't it, Mike?
Oh, so many different shows do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
yeah. Which is why I kind of like Friends and Seinfeld. They knew when to go out. You go out when you're on your prime. People love you. They want more from you. You know, Big Bang Theory went too long. You know?
I wasn't going to say anything, but it went 10 years too long in my opinion.
Right. It just, had they have ended a few seasons before that, people were in love with the characters and, you know, that kind of stuff, but it went too long. The jokes weren't funny anymore. It was the same thing, but now instead of Leonard and Penny, it was Sheldon and Amy, and it was just, meh, you know. But yeah. So there's not a lot to watch on TV right now. I mean, Lord forbid I watch one of the 20 streaming services I pay for.
Well, you just might have to watch an old movie or something. I bet Les can give you some tips.
Yeah, because a lot of it, you just start scrolling and it's like, oh, that doesn't... Oh, Disney Channel. They played Wonder. Have any of you guys seen that about the little boy? He's... it's Julia Roberts and... oh, I can see his face. It's not Michael McConaughey. It's the other guy. Anyways, he's pretty well known too, but this little boy was born with like deformities, and he had to have like all kinds of surgeries so he could see, so he could walk, and you know, when he was done, of course he's healthy and stuff now, but it left his face, you know, they did the best they could do, you know. So of course, just starting middle school, everything, you know, he was homeschooled to this point. And then he starts public school, so you can imagine where that goes, you know. But it's just one of those cute, make you feel good stories. Owen Wilson, That's who he is. No. But it was one of those, you're flipping and you weren't going to stop, but...
Damn if it didn't drag you back.
Yeah. They had a thing on Facebook. It was something about the best bar fight I've ever seen. And so I watched, you know, it's like a 5-minute clip. And it's like, that was pretty good. What was that from? I wound up watching Secondhand Lion. Which was actually pretty cute. But, so yeah, I guess I just
Michael Caine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one with Michael Caine. Is it Robert Duvall in that too?
Uh-huh. And the little boy is the kid.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, I see that people.
Sense, yeah.
But that was another cute one. See, and I think I've gotten that one confused with a different Lion show, and so I didn't watch it because it didn't sound like it would, you know, would interest me. But I think that one's called The Life of Pi, or
the Bengal Tiger.
I think so. Yeah. Where they're on a boat or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A tiger in Africa?
No.
This is like in the Atlantic or something.
Tom knows what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Yeah. That's about it.
Sounds cool, though.
Yeah. Few good movies.
Good luck finding something to watch. I mean, geez.
Yeah. Now I've got a couple of time slots with my shows ending.
I do want to piggyback on what Mike was saying. 15 seasons, and then you need a 2-hour epilogue or something. There is something wrong there.
Mm-hmm. Or they're going to do something really screwy that the audience is not going to like, and so they need a 2-hour apology.
Well, what?
Or the only way they can possibly surprise the audience at this point is to utterly blindside them, and so then they're going to have to go back and spend 2 hours explaining how they came up with that or explaining where it came from.
Yeah.
Now,
which sucks.
Here would be the perfect ending, and I'm sure Mike will agree with me. It's the final episode. Everybody's kind of just in the room going, well, this has gone crazy, hadn't it? Yes. Well, you just want to end it? Well, okay, let's stop. The end.
I just get up and walk out, right?
Yeah, we're done. But, I could see Sam and Dean doing something like that. You want to quit? Yeah, all right. Let's go. And they drive off in the sunset, but with baby.
But what they need to do is they need to drive past the cameras, though. And they need to make it obvious they're driving past the cameras. They need to just off the set entirely. Just
Yeah. It's over.
And for those who don't get that, that is a Monty Python reference.
Yes, they regularly did shit like that in sketches. They just didn't bother writing an ending. They're just like, screw it. We'll just end it. Or somebody will just look at the camera and go, well, that was stupid, and cut away, or something.
And then there's a title card saying the end, and goes to the next sketch. Yes.
Well, they would call it the end of the road, because it's always been the road so far, so end of the road. But Jared getting ready to play Walker. Oh.
Well, that's obviously on hold. So.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a reboot that I've ever wanted less.
Pretty much.
You gonna let him talk like that, Les?
I despised that show the first time around, and I have no reason to believe it's going to be any better this time.
See, I think I got into it because they filmed not too far away from where Phil worked. So it was kind of like a local thing, and Chuck Norris, Now it's Jared Padalecki.
Okay.
So, but I will say I didn't know how well he would get into the, he's from Texas, but, he's going to do all right. He'll be a good cowboy.
I'm sure the show will be just fine for the people who are aimed. Who have a target audience, and that's just not me, and that's okay.
Yeah, and the Supernatural family is huge. You can walk into a store and start singing "Carry On, My Wayward Son," and everybody who's a Supernatural friend is going to know what you're talking about.
Well, and also everybody who just walked in listening to the classic rock station. I mean, come on. And fans of the band Kansas and any other list of people. I mean, holy crap. That's a pretty easy one.
Yeah. My grandbaby can sing part of that song. She likes that in MCR,
I wonder why. Where did the baby get eyeliner? I don't know.
Oh. Is that eyeliner? It's not always been like that?
I don't think that's eyeliner. It's okay.
Oh.
Okay, Les. I don't know how to top that. I don't know how to follow that. Well, I went delving into the world of Amazon Prime and Netflix. Found a couple things. I found some Ed Wood movies, including a half-hour pilot that he was doing for a television show that got no further than the pilot.
But shocker there.
Do what, sir?
I said shocker there.
Oh, yeah. But it was kind of eerie, kind of creepy, and I thought it was pretty well done. But as you watch it, the narrator speaking had the cadence of Ed Wood movies. So you went, oh, okay, I know exactly who did this. He wrote and directed it. Thank God he didn't star in it. But that got me to thinking, and I found a documentary, and then I watched a movie. The documentary was, I don't know if we've talked about this one, Best Worst Movie. It was about an hour-long documentary following the actors from a movie, Troll 2.
Oh, no.
Troll 2 was, and I watched it afterwards, and I went, this is horrendous. And I can see why it is considered the best worst movie. This movie gets 0 stars on IMDb, and it is horrible. But it is so frickin' funny to watch the documentary, then watch the movie and go, I see what they're doing. And this is a movie that's become a cult favorite, which is astounding. So I'm hoping that the local theater will show this so I can just come and revel in it. It is so funny. It's so bad. The acting is horrible. The makeup is horrendous. I don't know. I have no other words for it.
You should plug it with your AGFA buddies.
I should. I should contact them and say, okay, get on get off your duff and start playing this movie, because it is.
I mean, and get them to show the documentary first too. I bet they'll do it.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah.
That would be awesome. When we ever get movie theaters again.
That would be nice too.
Well, I thought I saw something that the one in Arizona filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, AMC was pretty shaky before the virus, so,
Yeah.
you know.
I heard something the other day that, I mean, there may not be a ton of them out there, but drive-in theaters are doing surprisingly well.
Yeah.
There's one out in Enos, I think,
Yeah.
called Galaxy. We've been there a few times.
There you go.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Thought I recognized you.
We watched the Dukes of Hazzard. Yeehaw.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
On purpose?
Right. You knew that.
Yeah.
You drove all that way, and you knew that's what they were showing. Gee.
Wow.
It was the before show, so I forget what the second one was. But yeah, 2 movies, usually an older and a newer movie.
Yeah. The way they used to do double features.
I watched Star Wars that way.
Nothing but Star Wars.
I watched The Shining that way. So what? When it was released.
Although, after being locked up, doesn't he make a lot more sense now? There are some times I feel like walking into the living room going, here's Johnny. Run.
Just to scare your spouse? Good God.
Right. No, freak him out. Like I start going, Red Rum. Red Rum.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, Les, did you have anything else on?
Yeah, really.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Not jumping back into that pool again.
No. That gene pool is at ankle lever.
Well, since we did talk a little bit about announcements and new shows and streaming services, I do want to point out the news that wasn't all that unexpected, but it was great to hear. They announced a new Star Trek series called Strange New Worlds, and it's going to be basically spinning off Christopher Pike and the Enterprise from Discovery. So that crew is going to be in their own series on the CBS
All Access.
All Access.
Hmm.
Yeah, cool. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Did anyone watch Picard while it was on, or?
I didn't. I don't have CBS All Access, so I have not watched it. But I think at this point, some of it's available elsewhere since the series is over. But I'm not sure.
Yeah. That was one I made a note to watch, but I didn't see it.
I've heard some good things about it. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. And I don't know if y'all saw a couple of months back when Patrick Stewart was going around doing the kind of promoting the show. He went on The View, and he personally invited Whoopi Goldberg to be on the second season as Guinan.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
So Guinan will be on the second season.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
The fact that he showed up and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you," and she's just, oh God! If you watch the video is awesome because she could not stop smiling, and she talks about that being the happiest she's ever been, I guess, in terms of working. So yeah,
Cool.
that's a really cool video, and it's kind of cool that she's coming back. So there's that. Not a lot on my end this week. Watching more Red Dead Redemption roleplay on Twitch. I gotta say this. I finally broke down and watched Joker.
Ooh. Well.
I still kind of stand by what I said before. It's a good movie. I'm not going to slide it at all. It's not like it was well made. Joaquin Phoenix was awesome. One of my problems was they sure did shit on the character so much. It was almost to the point where you're going, okay, guys, come on, you know. But I really kind of wish this had not been a TC film. Really, I think if it was, you yank all the references and just made it, okay, here's a guy just wanting to make people laugh and smile, you know, because he was working at a clown, but he was also wanting to be a stand-up comedian and was failing at everything. Who had history of has mental issues, and they go into that pretty great detail as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just that, you know, one bad day and then he kind of goes off. It just, you know, call the film Smile, and don't give him the Joker name. Don't even call him anything, or the clown or whatever. And I'll probably have been fine with it. It didn't really upset me to the point where I did not enjoy the film, but it's just kind of one of those little like, you know, I don't know. Yeah. But it was a good film. I if you've not seen it, I would say watch it. It can be a tough watch at times, but yeah, it was a good film.
I enjoyed that one.
I did too.
But you know, DC, I felt, tried to distance themselves so much from that film to where even they didn't have the normal DCU opening. with all the comic book characters and, like Marvel has the pages flipping and that kind of stuff. Very, very small, during the opening scenes on the bottom corner did they put DC. So it was kind of like they really didn't want to be associated with it.
In fairness, if you go back and watch it, I think, I don't know if that was a conscious decision on DC's part or Todd Phillips' part, because when it opens up, it has the old Warner Brothers logos from the 80s. You don't get the shield of the WB. It's the old logo from 1980s, and this is set in the 80s. So I think that may have been a conscious choice from Todd Phillips' point.
Huh.
Because that surprised the hell out of me when it started up. And I saw that, I'm like, okay.
Haven't seen that in a while, huh?
Yeah. Well, unless I'm watching a movie from the 80s or 70s or something like that. So I don't know.
I kind of feel that I think with the backlash before it even opened, DC kind of pulled back. Which, hey, from a business standpoint, it was probably the smart thing to do. But then on the other hand, when Birds of Prey wasn't doing so well, that's the first thing they did, where they put their name and Harley's name front and center. Let's rename the movie. Let's make sure, So I think DC has kind of learned how to roll with the wave, I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
To be honest, that was a ridiculous title,
Yeah. Well, most people didn't know what Birds of Prey was. If you're not a comic book fan and you only watch the comic book movies, you wouldn't have known that. I mean, to me, it almost sounds Birds of Prey like a Crow movie or something,
Right.
Well, I mean, that's
a TV show in the 90s that didn't work, apparently, because it only lasted one season.
Yeah. And you can watch it now on, what is it, the CW Seed or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not the first. The studio to have that kind of issue. I mean, we've talked about it before with John Carter.
Yeah.
If you call it John Carter Warlord of Mars, then you got it. The general public can go, okay, this is going to be a sci-fi film. If you just call it John Carter, God, that could be anything. That could be a biopic about a inner city teacher trying to make a difference in the lives of kids.
Yeah.
Unless you see the trailers. But if you see it on the marquee, you have no freaking clue. Harley Quinn, you might have a better idea because you might have heard the name. Birds of Prey, yeah. I mean, just seeing that. Hell, that could be a horror movie about birds attacking people.
Right.
It's a remake of The Birds. Yeah, I know.
Birdemic
Right.
2. Birds of Prey.
Oh, God.
The birds are back in town.
So, but it was a good movie. It surprised me on several. There were several points where I went, okay, I didn't see that coming. There was a couple that I did. But that's okay. But I overall I liked the movie. It was. Is it something I'll watch over and over again? No. I mean, it was enough. I saw it.
Like you said, kind of hard to watch at times.
It is. Like I said, it was almost to the point. It was like I said, holy crap, movie.
Yeah.
I think you've driven home the point with a freaking Spike that this guy can't catch a freaking break.
Yeah. Although I did think it was kind of interesting how they did the laugh.
That was an interesting. I did like. I really liked it. The fact that it was I forgot what it's called. It's some kind of
Almost Tourette's.
Yeah, it just where in certain situations, someone may just uncontrollably laugh or uncontrollably cry because that is that's just how it the mind kind of processes things, especially in stressful situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought that was an interesting way to handle that. But and the other thing, and I guess it's another point of the whole DC reference and all that. I really hated the way they handled Thomas Wayne in that film.
Yeah. And tell me anybody would have been able to get that close to Bruce without Alfred snapping their neck. You know? To me, I that was when I was like, yeah.
Well, not only that, but how he was able to, how Arthur was able to get into the building where they were showing minor problems, was able to get like a bellboy outfit, and nobody notices him.
Yeah.
Then he takes the bellboy coat and hat off, goes into the restroom, and one guy just walks by him and just doesn't even notice him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is a black tie affair. Here's a guy who's wearing just regular clothes. They're not even, and he looks crazy, and you don't even acknowledge that he's even there. I'm like, okay.
But I think that was kind of the point of the show. Everybody had always overlooked him. I remember as a kid, there was a kid in class who had a shorter leg. And everybody was like, don't look, don't look, don't look. You don't want somebody seeing that you're staring at them or that they've got a problem, So it was always pounded into us as little, don't look, you're going to make them feel uncomfortable. Or don't look or you're going to have to see them,
I see where you're coming from, and I get that, but I mean, another centimeter or so, they would have bumped into each other. They were that close. The fact that he didn't even, it just.
Well, in a black tie affair, if he would have made eye contact with him, he then would have had to have lowered himself to say hello. So sometimes it's, kind of like clutch your purse and walk to the other side of the street kind of thing.
Well, and it's an extreme case of that, too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of maybe the point, is that it's supposed to be an extreme case of that.
Yeah. That nobody really noticed him until he started killing people,
And God, did he kill people.
Yeah. But, not justifying a psycho killer, because it's never okay to kill someone.
We never do that on the show.
Right. But the people he did kill, you could kind of see why he did, He lost his job because of that other guy, but he let the other guy go because at that point, you haven't done anything to me. You haven't added to my shitty day, You haven't laughed at me. So in his mind, you can see where he was like, this person wronged me and this person didn't. Almost an entitlement of, Not saying it was right. Like I said, it's never cool to kill people. But if your brain was twisted, you could kind of see how he reasoned that with, these people have hurt me.
See, and that's the awkward thing about a movie like this, is that you spend all of this time justifying the evil acts. And so,
Not justifying
it doesn't even.
them.
Oh, on the contrary, I think it is justifying them to an extent. I think you're making your audience empathize with a stone cold killer, and I think that's a dangerous road to take.
Yeah.
I think that's a bad idea. I think you're going to lose a lot of people that way. Even if it is a brilliant movie, like everybody says it is.
Yeah. And the other thing is that's kind of scary about this is watching when I started kind of getting into this and seeing what is going on with Gotham. God, it parallels what the hell's going on right now, which scares the hell out of me because we could, not that we're going to have a Joker-like person appear, but we don't know that. Yeah.
Well, we kind of have off and on. You know, you have people who just finally snap, you know, school shootings, mall shootings. You just have someone who there's really no rhyme or reason for what they did. They just snapped, you know. But yeah, put in stressful situations, you know. But it may not be a popular opinion. I did kind of like the light that they showed on mental illness. He was trying to get help. He was taking the pills. He was going to see the counselor. And to that point, he hadn't killed anybody. It wasn't until they started cutting funding and he couldn't afford pills that he just went off into the deep end and started killing people, you know. And honestly, that's kind of the way it is, you know.
But he also said that he thought better, that he felt better not being on those pills and not doing all that stuff. So it should, that's dangerous too.
It's very dangerous. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is. But it kind of, with those kind of situations though, we don't notice those people until they explode. Which we need to find a better way of noticing those people or helping those people before they explode. You know, that's the trick.
And the other scary thing is his actions actually inspired other people to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he almost seem surprised by that though? Like when they were taking him in and he saw all of those people, it was almost kind of like, wait a minute, you know, I did this, you know. He almost seemed surprised that he had gained attention or somebody noticed him, you know.
I thought he kind of had that earlier in the film when there was so much talk about it, and then all of a sudden people started, you know, he's out. He's in the newsstand and he's reading the paper about his first kill, and he looks out. He just looks across the street and there's a taxi driving by, and there's a guy wearing a clown mask in the back seat looking at him, and he kind of smiles. He's like, "Oh, okay."
But towards the second half of the movie, did you start to question if that really happened, or did he just see that? I know at one point it was like, wait, what? What's real?
Well, some of that I picked up on, like I said earlier. Some of I kind of figured out pretty quick, and some I didn't. Some of the stuff that we later find out was what we saw was not real. I kind of figured it out pretty quick. I was just like, that, it didn't make sense. It really didn't make sense. And I don't want to go into too much details without spoiling. So, yeah, I mean, some of them are going, oh, okay, he was just imagining it. But the other ones, I was like, there's just no way. There's no way this is happening. It doesn't make sense for this to happen. And then you find out later in the film, none of that happened.
None of it.
It was all his imagination. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I did find it funny. Well, I don't want to say funny, but him passing by the marquee and the double bill was Blowout and Zorro the Gay Blade. And I knew it was an 80s, and then I saw Zorro the Gay Blade. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We're about to have another version of that scene. And sure enough, we did. God. So that makes, 11 different versions now? Maybe a dozen? Oh, God. We know the goddamn origin, people, please. Anyway, we do need to move on. We spent so much time on this. So, and like I said, Red Dead Redemption roleplay on Twitch has been another amazing week. some really good stories there. You talk about TV and all that. Just there's some great storylines being presented here, and not only that, character development, and this is all unscripted. That's the thing. This is general role playing. Although there's not like in D&D where you have someone kind of overseeing things and saying, well, this is what's happening, and this is what, this is going. This is all being done by players playing with each other and interacting, and then just doing their thing. And that's the thing that's cool. Some really, really good storylines and some amazing role players playing this game right now. I know I've been saying this for the last few weeks, but it's been incredible. So, when I see, another character, they killed another character off, and I was like, oh God, and I've invested so much time in the character. So yeah, I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you've encountered good role playing.
Yep.
It's no different than watching a favorite TV show and one of your characters on your favorite TV show, they kill off. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just if it's done correctly, it's very powerful. It's very emotional. And then when it's not, then yeah, it's not. But I've been lucky so far. So before we get into this week's topic, I do want to point out again, we are looking for questions for our Ask the Fellowship episode. That'll be coming up soon, we hope. Definitely get your questions to us if you have something you want us to kind of discuss in a future episode. There are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form you can fill out there with your question, or you can reach us through social media, Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, and Twitter @Fellowship Geeks, or you can contact us through our personal pages and our personal Twitter accounts, and I'll go through that once again at the end of the show. But if you got something you want us to kind of discuss in a future episode, let us know. And if we pick your question, we'll obviously shout you out and thank you tons, or maybe curse you because of the whatever question you have. But more than likely, we'll shout out and say thank you. So, all right. A little background on this week's discussion. This topic was supposed to have been recorded. What was it, back in February?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we were going to record it like end of January so that we could drop it in February, because it was going to be our contribution to the Women in Horror Month. But February ended up being a pretty horrible month already, so we ended up not doing it then.
Yeah. This was part of the kind of further contributions to the group that we did all the horror with back in October. And assuming we will do something again this October, if something similar comes up, and we'll be more than happy to be a part of that. But yeah, things just didn't kind of work out, so we weren't able to record that episode then. So we decided to go ahead and do it today. We are going to discuss the series that was published by Image Comics. It was written and illustrated by Scotty Young, and it's called, and it's one that we've talked about a lot. It's been picked several times. Called I Hate Fairyland.
Depending on which version you read.
Well, let's stick with the one that's in the Diamond Previews thing. Also, let's try to see if I'm probably going to blow off the explicit tag already, but whatever, it'll be fine.
So, all right, let's talk about I Hate Fairyland.
It's good. Go read it. Good night, everybody.
Right.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Bye.
haven't we told y'all enough about this and you still haven't bought it?
I think we have all individually and as a group plugged this book in one way or another. So
Definitely. To me, it was genius. Wow. If you marry cute with creepy, you get Gertie, who, like most 8-year-old or 40-year-olds trapped in an 8-year-old's body, is not very happy with her situation.
By the way, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy discussion.
Yeah, very spoiler-heavy.
I'll read the damn book anyway.
Right, it's been out for a few years, but that's the basic premise. She gets trapped in fairyland. You're supposed to go from one end to the other end, and it's only supposed to take like a day, and la da da da. You go back to where you were. Well, Gertie couldn't figure it out, And after 40 years of being stuck in fluffing fairyland, she was done with it. So she killed everything in her path. I mean, anything cute, she squished it.
With extreme prejudice.
With a very extreme prejudice. I mean, she drank, she cusses, she burps. I mean, it's hilarious. He said that he really didn't plan on this series being as long as it was. And to me, I don't think it was long enough. I mean, I absolutely loved this book. I would say that this is probably one that I keep on my bookshelf at all times because I'm always reading it here and there, remember a part and I can't remember, did the dragon go pee? And you go back and you're like, yep, he did.
He did. And that pee fueled the van, but anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved this. I had been a fan of his cover work, and I don't know if I had read anything that he had written before, as sad as that sounds. I think he's mainly known for his artwork. So when he gave, I'll say me, when he gave me a story like this, it was kind of like, oh my God, he thinks the way that I thought he would just by looking at his artwork. And then you listen to some of his interviews and you're like, oh my God, I would love to go party with the guy for a couple hours,
Well, and also slightly spoilery, Liz sent us a YouTube link to a interview with him from like a year ago. I did not get a chance to watch the whole thing, but I saw enough of it to see the 2 tattoos on his arm.
Yes.
He has tattoos of Alfred E. Newman, the guy from the Mad Magazine things, and Calvin and Hobbes. And I think the combination of those two things says it all about the guy.
Yes. Especially when he said he was going to finish it off with an Archie tattoo.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He said he started reading Archie. He says, but I didn't realize those were comics. And I'm thinking, the Reader's Digest. Are they? I kind of think of my sister when I think of those. But he said that he loved art. He didn't realize not everybody loved art as much as he did. But he saved up his money to buy a Mad magazine. And he still hadn't put together that art and comics would be what he would do, But he said he always loved Bill Walters, so it's kind of a homage to... He started reading Archie, and we wouldn't have him had it not been for Mad Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
And it shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. See... My original premise for this, when we started talking about doing this, was, like I said, we were going to record this for Women in Horror Month. And my premise for that was that, yes, this is a very cute book, but it is also one of the goriest books I have ever read.
It is.
And I've read some horror shit, man. It's just loaded with blood and guts and gore. And it looks, I mean, you look at it and it looks like a kid's book. And I mean, it's clearly marked that it's for mature audiences all over the thing.
Yeah.
But my premise was that if we want to talk about women in horror, Gertrude would be an awesome place to start.
Yes.
And that's why we were going to do it that way. And my premise to this day is that this is one of the coolest horror stories I've ever read. And it's set in Fairyland.
Fairyland. The cutest place on the world.
The cutest place in any world, right?
Yeah. And I liked the way he handled the arcs, too. It seemed like when she thought you were almost there, she was getting to the end, man, he would come way out of left field and just blow you over. You know, it's like, wow, I didn't see the queen doing that.
Oh.
Wait, we're going to have two cute little girls in here?
The end of the first arc is it's just perfect Gert.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just like, of course she does that. And of course it screws her over because that's her whole life. But yeah, I mean, to just turn around and blam. Uh-huh.
Destroy.
Because she is a 100% terrorist in Oz, for crying out loud. It's like the perfect place. It's like the perfect happy place. And
But, you know, it's kind of like when you go to Disney World. It's like, oh, wow, this is awesome. This is the best place on earth. And then you get locked in for 40 years. After a while, you're like, screw you, mouth.
Most people can't even imagine that. I mean, they can't even put that in their heads. It's just not, I mean, but here it is in 20-issue run. Right there. That's what would happen.
Yeah. Which I think like I said, he had only planned it to be like 5.
Oh, yeah. I remember that when it was coming out, is he had said he only planned for it to be one arc.
Yeah. And I think his comment was, "You fuckers are sick.
Yeah.
You want more?"
And he sat down at his desk and he said, "All right, you asked for it."
Yeah.
Cranked out 3 more arcs.
But, you know, in that interview, something interesting he said was when he first did the baby style that kind of he's known for, he was like, you know, it was one issue for X-Men and it didn't really do that well. You know, then he did another issue for Spider-Man and it wasn't even a blip, you know. And then he did that whole run for Marvel. He said they started off by saying, hey, can you do 5 covers for us? And he was like, well, yeah, I could do 5 covers. You know, he says, anytime you get more than 1 cover deal, you know. He says, and before he could finish that, they were calling him back, hey, we need 10, hey, we need 15. He says, and at one point he looked up on his calendar and he was booked, to have like 2 covers out a week for the next year. So he was like, you know, I was, you know, blew him away. He's like, because before I didn't, you know, I didn't know that's what people wanted. Now that's all they want from me.
Yeah, he's doing all right with it.
He is. Well, and he was one of the first that I could recognize his artwork. And, you know, before I really knew who I liked, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's distinctive, to say the least.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of his artwork, I Hate Fairyland just kind of perfectly hand in hand marries what he does perfectly, you know. The story was good and crazy enough and solid, you know. Especially, most people have a storyboard for their whole story, whether it's going to be in 10 issues or, you know, 50. And he had to keep going outside of that for, okay, one more volume.
Right. How am I going to keep this going now?
Yeah. And I can't ever say in any part of the book where I was like, oh, this is kind of slow. It's never slow.
Nope. It's nonstop madness.
Yeah.
And it just keeps coming and coming and coming. In the most awesome possible way. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
And if you buy the trades because you didn't read the singles, you're lucky because it was like every month we had that cliffhanger and we had to wait.
Mm.
What is Gertie going to do next
Yes,
time?
we did. That was hard too. Oh my God.
Is she alive?
She, of course she's alive. She can't. They can't kill her.
Yeah, they tried though.
Some of the covers are genius too. Honestly,
Yeah,
there's one that was just a blatant ripoff of the. Was it Spider-Man with the throws a costume in the trash can in the alley?
Yeah.
yeah.
It was that, except she was buck naked and flipping the bird behind her, walking away from the camera angle. Oh man. And that's just one.
Yeah. And then I think after I Hate Fairyland, wasn't it like Gertie goes to Comic-Con or Gertie kills Marvel or something like that where she killed like everyone? Yeah, of course. I think they've done the same thing for Deadpool.
I find myself wondering if that's where he got the idea.
Probably.
Yep. It's an impressive story that it is twists and turns. That's the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it is twists and turns that are, for the most part, her screwing herself over by making dumb choices. I mean, she's clearly not cut out for this kind of thing. I mean, everybody's met that person who can't read a map to save their lives. Well, this is that to the nth degree. I mean, all she has to do is figure out how to read the map, and she can go home. And 30 years later, she's still trying to figure out this map. Still in the body of an 8-year-old. Oh, and it cracks me up in the first arc. They're in the bar because she drinks a lot for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Not so much for a 40-year-old, but definitely for an 8-year-old. And doesn't realize she's drinking the wishing beer and wishes she could look normal, even just for a little while. And what she turns into is absolutely hilarious. It's completely repulsive, of course, but absolutely the idea behind it is just genius. Because, I mean, again, spoiler. This is spoiler heavy. She turns into this corpulent, monstrous-looking thing. And she's like, what the hell is going on here? And Larry, her guide, who is a fly, who smokes cigars, and wears a bowler hat. But anyway, he was like, you've been living for 30 years on nothing but sugar, piled on top of sugar mixed with sugar. What were you expecting? Of course you turned into what was it? He said a type 19 diabetic tumor.
Yeah. Sugar and beer.
He tells it better than I do, but you get the idea.
And Larry, being a fly, he wasn't supposed to live as long. They have life of like a week and, it's over. Right. So this was supposed to be like an easy job for him. And he gets stuck with Gertie. 30 years later.
Yeah, because they go back at one point later on and do the issue, which is him growing up and how he became a guide. And it's a really, really fun issue. I mean, they're all fun issues, but yeah, to go back and get Larry the early years is a lot of fun.
I think it would be neat for him to do a follow up. Did she get home? Had it been 30 years later and now here's your 8-year-old kid who returns?
Well, you need to read through to the end. Because they kind of do, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Did they?
Read the last issue.
Okay, I'll have to pull that one out again.
Read issue 20.
See, it's kind of like the Dragon Pea. It's like, did that happen?
Right. I mean, it's not terribly unlike that.
Cool. So he already did it then.
He wrapped it up really nicely. I mean, I could still see him coming back and doing something like that.
Or using her for something else.
Right.
Yeah.
having her show up somewhere else. Totally. Yeah, I mean, in a way, see, I mentioned, here's a weird parallel for you. I mentioned Black Hammer a few weeks ago. One of the characters in that, Golden Gale, is this superpowered woman who, in order to have her superpowers, she transforms into a child. She's like a housewife in her 50s. And because the team is trapped in this parallel dimension, basically, she's trapped in the 8-year-old child's body. So there's this wicked little parallel. I mean, and honestly, these books started coming out about the same time, so it's not like one was ripping off the other. It was just this weird coincidence in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Gail is very, very pissy about it. Just like not like you'd be surprised by that or anything. But yeah.
Oh no.
So it adds an interesting dimension to that story too.
Well, isn't Shazam kind of the same thing too?
In reverse, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he becomes a grown up, whereas when he shuts the powers down, he becomes the 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, having it be the other way around is pretty mind altering, I would say.
Yeah.
That'll screw with you.
So what'd you guys think?
About what?
Really? Really?
This was a comic I grabbed when it first came out, just because it had such an intriguing idea. It was solid throughout its 20-issue run. It did have a finale, which was a little, that fourth arc was a little unusual how it was handled. But when it was finished, I said, okay, I can understand what he was doing, why he did this. And then the entire run was so funny. And to have Larrigan be there spouting his wisdom. This was one of those that I would read and put voices to it. And for Larrigan, all I could think of was Lewis Black. I thought this would be a hit right there.
That's awesome. I love it.
Gertie, I think, may have been, I know this is sacrilegious, but Dakota Fanning. Because she can, and we're just talking voices, because obviously I don't think there's enough CGI to make Lewis Black as big as a fly. So
you could not do this live action. There's just no way.
No. And not get a rating that's
Right.
passable.
Oh man, no. You might not be able to do it animated without whatever, some sort of NC-17 rating or something.
Well, the good thing is the language doesn't cause a problem. It's the gore, it's the violence. So I think Young did a wonderful job in this, and to think it is, how many years do we say? This is 15? No.
It started up in like October 2015. Yeah.
2015, yeah. So it's 5 years old now. It still has a following, and I think it's something that this is a book I want to give my wife to sit down and read, because she'll go, I know exactly what she means. So I'm very into this. I think it's very good, very funny, and kudos.
Yeah, this is a book that my kid keeps saying, I want to read that. Why won't you let me read that? I'm like, because it says mature. That's why.
But it says Fairyland.
Very mature.
I'm at the point where I'm about to give in and just say, you know what? Here, I'll pay some therapy bills. Go for it.
Be careful what you wish for.
As evidenced by this book.
In spades.
Honestly, I really can't add anything that y'all already mentioned. It's just, yeah, it's funny as hell, gory as hell. It's a wild trip. The entire 20 issues. It's just, yeah, it just. It was kind of, it's cool because it's so different from anything else. So it was such a great change compared to anything else that was being put out at the time. Mm-hmm. So that was awesome as well. Which, I mean, we always point out books that are that have something a little bit unique to it to kind of refresh the palate, I guess. It's just not the same old. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because even when it's I don't even go further than that. It's just, this was such a unique ride, and I think we all were pretty much on the same page, saying, yeah, if you've not checked this out, you definitely do. You really should.
Yeah.
You may curse this after you read it.
It will change your perspective.
Yeah.
The puns are everywhere.
Yes, everywhere.
And they're so worked into the story that it's tremendous. I haven't seen puns used like this since Robert Asprin books were still around.
Yep, the Myth series. She even goes to a convention.
Yeah. Kills everything, but...
Well, she does that everywhere she goes anyway. Yeah. But the idea that Fairyland has its own con, it's just great.
I forgot about the convention. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that was the cover I liked.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Non-stop insanity and gore.
We said this was what, 2015?
It was like 2015, I believe. Yeah. Or was it early 2016? Or was it even before then? Let's see.
On volume 4, inside it's saying 2018 was 16 through 20.
Yeah, if we're looking at that, volume 1 says 2016. It's copyright 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
So probably
April.
2015 when the issues.
Yeah, this says April. So yeah, they would have started coming out, like Tom said, late 2015.
Yeah. Well, also, if you wanted this kind of story set in real life, you know what this reminded me of?
Oh, Lord.
And it was also 2015. Norman.
Oh,
Who's that? Stan Silas? Stan Silas?
I believe so. It sounds right.
But it was another kind of creepy, cute, gory.
Uh-huh.
And I think Mikey's quoted on the back of one of them books, aren't you?
The Norman ones?
On the Norman one.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yep.
Because, yeah, I got a big kick out of them back then, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts on I Hate Fairyland?
Yes, everybody needs to go buy this book or we'll keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
And
There's a greater than zero chance that it is at your local comic shop.
Yep.
All the volumes. And then there's 2 books that are kind of collects the first 2 volumes, the first 2 trades, and then book 2 collects the second 2. So there you go. Be easier.
Andy has a coloring book for it.
Awesome.
I have that one too.
Of course you do.
And that note, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. As you're probably well aware, for the last few weeks we have been doing, instead of picks for comics or trades that will be coming out this week, we've been kind of going back and doing picks of titles that you might have missed, and in an attempt to just point these books out to you and help out your local comic shop who's obviously hurting during this current situation. They're obviously still taking orders. They're doing curbside pickup, shipping, of course, and in some cases, if they're able to do deliveries. So definitely contact your comic store. Make sure you picked up your pulls if you hadn't already. And hopefully we're giving you some food for thought. Go ahead and pick these books up. Help them out. With that stated, let's go ahead and Les, you lead off this week.
Thank you, sir. My choice is from Boom Studios. It's called Wizard Beach. Wizard Beach is a humorous look at magic, as you have the main character, Hexley Daggard Ragbottom, who sets off to find his uncle Salazar, who he believes is the most powerful wizard of the modern age. But what he finds is that his uncle just wants to kick back, relax, and steer clear of wizard politics. So the question is, how does Hex try to become a great wizard if the adults are too lazy to teach him? This is by Sean Simon and Connor Nolan, and I highly recommend this one. It came out in 2017, 2018. So try this one. It's a pretty fun read.
Cool.
Yep, I enjoyed that one too.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. Liz, you are next.
All right. For my pick, I went with one called Void Trip. It's from Image. It's about 2 people. They're the last humans in, like, the galaxy. And after a while, everybody is looking for them because they're the last 2 humans in the galaxy. Well, Anna's kind of trippy. She likes drugs and always on the search for the next fruit, that they called it in here. And, it's kind of her tale of, what happens, her journey. And, if you can imagine a world that's being taken over by like robots and aliens and stuff. So pretty interesting read. It's definitely a very trippy read because, like I said, she trips a lot in this book. So, and she takes you right along with her. So definitely a good one. It is a mature. She spends half the book topless. So definitely not a kid's book, but definitely one I found funny and hilarious. And since it is an alien world, some of the artwork sometimes is just like, wow. I don't know if she's tripping or if that's what aliens really look like, So, Void Trip, pretty good read. But I found it very interesting to the end.
Yep, that was a pretty good one.
Yep.
Yeah. Alrighty, Mike.
Okay, so my title is from Dark Horse Comics, and since we were talking about I Hate Fairyland, I figured, let's pick something darker. So the title I picked is Shadows on the Grave, and this actually came out originally as, I believe, an 8-issue series, and it was mostly written and drawn by Richard Corbin, who is one of the grandmasters of especially horror comics. He's worked on everything, and he's a really good artist. And this particular series was kind of a horror anthology series, kind of flashing back to his days at Creepy and Eerie, doing those kinds of comics. And there's some really good stuff in here. And one of the things that made it fun, I remember, was that there was one kind of ongoing story throughout these 8 issues, that was, the main character was specifically a descendant of Den. And if this is a name that you might have heard of, because Den was one of the short bits from the movie Heavy Metal, the animated film back in the early 80s, which was a huge jumping off point for a good number of artists, and folks who were working on the Heavy Metal magazine and comics back in those days. Lots of really interesting stuff. But yeah, Den was there was like a fantasy segment, and it was the main character in that was Den, and this character in this Shadows on the Grave was a descendant. So there was kind of a lot of callbacks and references to stuff throughout this whole series, but it was really cool. This came out in 2018, so hopefully maybe they still have a copy of it on the shelves. And if they also have his previous book, which was called Rat God, that was from 2015. That's also a really good story too. That's actually more like a full-blown story. That's not an anthology, but it's a horror story, and it's really interesting too. But yeah, so the work of Richard Corbin in general, but specifically Shadows on the Grave.
Cool.
Yep, Corbin is incredible. I definitely love his art, and his writing's just top notch as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. For my choice, I'm going with a Vertigo title. It's one that we've kind of talked about a couple times over the course of the run of shows. This was written by Brian K. Vaughan and Pierre Guerrera, and it is Why the Last Man. And this is the story of Yorick and his monkey Ampersand, who survived this basically a pandemic, I guess you could say, that basically eliminated all the male mammals on the planet Earth. They are the only 2 male mammals left alive. And it's basically him dealing with not only this new situation, but what is going on with the women of the planet, what they're doing, how they're adapting. And all he wants to do is go to Australia where his girlfriend was. But, some women want to kill him and just make it an Amazonian kind of utopia. Some want to capture him and try to figure out why he survived and see if maybe try to do clones or try to bring back the male population. It was a series that lasted 60 issues, 5 trades, and then no, not 5 trades, 10 trades. I'm sorry. There was 5 deluxe books. There's been attempts to try to do a live action version of this. There's been a couple of film attempts. Most recently, a TV series or a streaming series. There really hadn't been any kind of updates about that in a while. But such a great story. Such a great book. Definitely should check this out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right. Any shout outs this week or special mentions?
Not for me. For real this time, I think.
Nothing here.
No, I think I'm talked out.
Well, I do want to mention a couple passings of note, especially in the comedy world. A couple, they're legends. There's just no way about it. There's no other way. One was Jerry Stiller.
All right.
Most may know him from being on King of Queens and the father of Ben Stiller. But, for years, he and his wife, Ann Mira, were a great comedic duo. Yeah, I remember seeing them when I was very young be everywhere. And just a blast to watch. They were always funny. And then more recently, we lost Fred Willard. God, what has he not been in?
Right.
Just so funny. A Mighty Wind. Y'all might have watched that. If you watched Everybody Loves Raymond, he was on there. I could keep on going. He's been around for decades.
Yeah.
Always funny. And I was saddened to hear about that. So obviously our thoughts were with family and friends with him.
Yep.
Do have a special announcement. This episode drops, obviously, is Memorial Day weekend. So everybody have a happy Memorial Day. Obviously, we were not able to do the things we would normally do on a Memorial Day weekend, but we still wish you a happy Memorial Day. Think about those who lost their lives for this country. Try to have fun if you can, but stay safe, obviously. But there will not be an episode next week, so we will not. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, right?
Yep. So they'll have to listen to this one twice.
Well.
And I'm so sorry.
Well, there's also about a couple hundred other episodes y'all can go back and listen to as well. So,
Just a few.
Yep. I usually pass around links for a few of the episodes when we take a week off. So, keep an eye open for those.
Yeah, definitely be following Mikey on Twitter. And we'll go over that here in a little bit. So, was there anything else
No.
needed to mention?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead to our regular shout-outs. And first off, I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of a great group of podcasts, and obviously having Mike on this past week. Definitely go check out that episode. And check out some of these other podcasts that are part of this network. Highly recommend them. Thank you guys for your support as always. I also want to thank the fellow podcasters that make up the Potter and family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. Highly recommend it. You go check them out. The easiest way to do that is just go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Potter and family, one word, and just scroll through, and whatever description catches your attention, click on that link and please download the episode, and hopefully you have a good time listening. Thank you guys as always. Also want to thank May the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. There will be a link in show notes where you can check out their fine music. Awesome group of guys, and we do appreciate their support as always. And last but certainly not least, you, dear listener, thank you for listening. We always appreciate your support, and we value your feedback. Have any comments, questions, suggestions, complaints, observations, what have you, by all means, contact us, especially if you have a question for us to answer on a future Ask the Fellowship episode. We definitely want those.
Yeah.
And I'll go over one more time how you get a hold of us. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can also go to the website and click on the About Us page. There's a form that you can fill out there. You can contact us through our social media. Facebook is The Fellowship of the Geeks, and Twitter is @FellowshipGeeks. You can contact us on our individual Twitter accounts. Mike can be found @MikeyGeek. Liz can be found @LN_geek. And I can be found @TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download our episodes, we would greatly appreciate it if you take a couple of moments and rate and review our show. Thank you. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We do appreciate your support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook @The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @FellowshipGeeks. Until next time,
Is anybody else getting like robot voices every once in a while?
No, that's just you.
Okay.
Nobody sounds like that to me, and not to be an asshole, but that's kind of all that matters.
Exactly. Okay.
What do you mean, Liz?
You know what I
Bencher
mean,
Will
though, right?
Robinson.
I am
I-
Bender. Please insert girder.
I don't know what you are talking about.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Liz.
Wow.
This will teach you to bring up technical issues, won't it?
Never again.
No, hopefully it doesn't last though, because
Yeah.
it is disconcerting for sure to hear that.